So now I'm pulling these axles off, but before I do, I need to kind of loose mount the motor and get the wires soldered so I know a close approximation of where I'm going to be putting this ESC. It'll be somewhere in the center, so I'll run my wires in and get the appropriate length. I need to do this before I take the axles off because the motors need to be mounted on the axle when the axle's off, and so therefore it'll be a little easier for me to just do it now and get the appropriate length and deal with the rest later. I'm putting two Axial 55 turn motors in there. This is an old staple of mine. I've used these a lot in the past, and I'm going with them. I by no means intend for this to be a fast crawler. This is going to be a utility crawler. It's meant to get over things and crawl, really crawl, so that's where we're going with this. So 55 turns should give me all the torque I need and not much speed. Speed is great, but I dig these 55 turn motors. 55 turn Axial motors versus a rebuildable motor, because I personally have much better success with these sealed can motors. I know a lot of guys are really big on the rebuildable motors and swapping out brushes and all. I've tried it. It doesn't work for me personally, so I'm sticking with these sealed cans. They die, I throw them away, and for 10 bucks or less I can get a new one and toss it right in there. Again, this works for me and not everybody else. This is what I'm using for this project, and that's that. So get these taken out, solder new wires on, because the Axial wire, number one, comes with the wrong connector, and number two, it's a little less thick than what I like to use. So I'm going to go ahead and get my own wire on there. I pretty much only use Dean's Wet Noodle. I also use an MPI product, but whenever I can find this Dean's Wet Noodle, I like to try to get that and use it whenever I can. So I'll get these wired up, and then I'm going to go ahead and pull these axles off.
Team Baxter.
The two motors are soldered up now. I've got one red shrink wrap on one side just to designate the red side, but it doesn't matter because one of these get reversed when I finally install them anyway. So you get those out of the way, and now I'm going to start cleaning up this axle. I need to remove it from the chassis, which is just 4 screws on the sides, the 2 lower links, the 2 shock mounts, and then just the 2 upper links that are connected by 1 screw. I got the axle off of the chassis, and I'm going to go ahead and get this split apart. The first time I ran this axle, I did not grease it, which is a big mistake. I should have done it. I just was too anxious to get it out, and I don't think I've done any damage. I can see up in the gears, and it's not too bad in there, but I want to get it apart and get it greased correctly. I think you can do that by just removing these screws here and getting it apart. It's pretty hefty. It's a lot to work with. It's so heavy. But I'm going to go ahead and see about getting this split open. The axle and gearbox came open with just 5 screws. Pretty simple, and it exposed this monster gearbox. There's a couple step gears in there, a few gears underneath behind where you can't see. I'm not going to pull all those out right here on camera because I like to keep track of them. But I'm going to get all these gears lubed and then get this axle back together. It's pretty cool to see all these heavy duty gears in here with little to no lube on there out of the factory. So I'm going to stop spinning on that before I knock something out and get it all lubed up and get it closed back up. After I get it all lubed up and I get it closed up, the motor will get installed here just behind the servo. And I'll point the wires the way they need to be. That way the motor's done and mounted, and I can set each axle and call them done. The pinion is under this piece of tape right there. It comes with the axle and I'll go ahead and attach that to the motor. Don't know what tooth the pinion is, but it doesn't matter because it's a unique pinion, not too easy to find pinion like this. So I'm gonna get this pinion cleaned up and get this installed on the motor, get this lubed, and keep moving. Put some pretty heavy grease on here. This is the gear that the pinion attaches to, so I'm not going to grease that so heavy. I'm just going to run one little light coat of grease around that. I don't want that pinion sloppy. But the rest of it I have pretty heavily coated in red and tacky. So there's the axle greased and remounted. You can see the motor placement is in there, and in the future I'll secure these wires a little better after I get all my wires in and figure out where they're all going to go. The bottom links are permanently installed. I've went ahead and put a hex nut holding the screw in. The shocks are not installed yet because I need to rebuild them. I'm going to rebuild them with a little lighter oil in the future steps. So that's the front axle. I need to do the exact same thing to the rear axle, get the motor mounted and get the axle and the gears greased. Get that back together, and then I'll move on to